Celtics Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Celtics Beat. I'm back. That's fun. It was Ev ran the party last week. Evan Valenti was here with Bobby Manning. This time you got the both of us, as well as Chris Forsberg, a backwards hat Chris Forsberg. And it's so
fresh
great.
Off an 81 Chris Forsberg. I think is where we need.
That's true. Fresh off the golf
course,
course, Chris Forsberg. He has many nicknames.
Yeah,
maybe future voice of the Celtics, Chris Forsberg.
No, that is not.
I don't know.
That's a sore subject. I'm not ready for the Mike Gorman departure, but I will say that if Mike Gorman has passed anything on to me, it has been the love of golf. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys. I tried. I got home and I said, I got to get ready. And some people at my house said, you can't go on camera looking like that. And I said, looking like what? And the hair is golf course tousled. So you get backward hat Forsberg today, which hasn't been seen in maybe, and not on camera maybe ever. It hasn't been seen really in these parts since, I don't know, I was in high school. So enjoy it.
It's really just so funny that I almost burst out laughing when our cameras came on and you showed up with the backwards hat, because, and I say this 1,000% sincerely, I had a little window. I had like a 20-minute window from playing video games with my kids to, jumping on here to do this. And I hadn't showered today and was all, also had a hat on, a little disheveled, wearing like the same shirt I'd worn the last 3 days. And I was like, I should, to your point, we're on camera. I should run through the shower real quick. Yeah, I wear a hat a lot. Maybe I won't wear a hat for the podcast. And, the mind starts wandering. I'm like, I'm not sure I've ever seen Forsberg with a hat on.
No. I mean,
and here you are. You show up with a hat on.
I know.
I
wish you could know how monumental.
I willed it into existence.
My wife would often joke she didn't know what I looked like without a hat, because we met in high school and I used to wear them all the time. And now I don't know. It's not even because I like my hair now. It's just I just don't wear hats anymore, except if I'm on a golf course. And and I just if I showed you guys earlier, it's like it's a little bit of a mess here. So we're just gonna rock with it. And if I had been thinking better, I would have looked like Evan with the 7 buttons open. So you know.
I know, I'm not even sure that actually is buttoned at any point. It's like he just walked in from the pool and the shirt is just, half and half.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I'm trying to bring it somewhat fashion to this particular pod. Forsberg being on the spot. I questioned what I was going to wear today, because usually with Forsberg, I wear something outrageous. And then this time I just decided to go I'm just fresh off the beach, ready to rock and roll here, basically. So,
are you fresh off the beach?
I've never seen you in a hat either.
No, so I don't wear hats. See, I think Forsberg's lying to himself. I think Forsberg doesn't wear hats because he knows his hair looks good, because that's why I don't wear hats.
True.
That's just because the hair looks too good. And I just don't have a hat. I wore a hat. I have one hat in my house. It's the Ted Williams 9.
Yeah.
With the retired number hat. That's the only hat I own. Actually, the next time I go play golf, I'm going to try and buy not a Red Sox hat, but a legitimate golf hat. I don't know what to do.
If I straighten this out, you get Sean's, which is Coastal Carolina.
Sick.
My mom lives in South Carolina, and the school is right in the backyard. And except my camera is going to wash out my whole shot because it's very white. So I'll be the whitest thing in the shot, and we'll keep it backwards.
Nice.
I'm very stereotypical media guy, likes free things. So I probably have 75 hats, and I wear 3 of them. They're all just in the closet, taking up space, driving my wife absolutely nuts. But hey, maybe we'll I'll start wearing a different hat for every show, and I'll see how long it takes to go through them all, and it will be 2029.
I mean, this is state of the Celtics that we've spent 7 minutes on hats.
That's right.
It's summer.
It's almost August, guys. What are we doing here?
Yeah. On the Gorman thing, I mean, we could go at length, obviously, talking about Mike Gorman, but I had to have a little chuckle to myself, Ev. I don't know if you were the same way when obviously Jared Weiss put out the story on The Athletic, and Mike kind of, I guess, made his formal announcement, if you will. And then obviously you guys at NBC Sports Boston, it's the let's celebrate Mike's final season and all of the questions about Will Grandy going to the booth and all that stuff. But I kind of chuckled because, I mean, Mike told us on this podcast 2 years ago exactly when he was going to retire. And, Jared
He's been,
putting it
but
out
he's
there
been
to-
kind of on the when they win one, and so
No,
this
not
is,
on this show. On this show, he was very specific. He said,
well,
it
good for
was
him.
it was literally like I'm trying to remember exactly when it was. Was it last year or the year before that we had him on?
We ask him this quite frequently because we're all very nervous about it. We're just like, what?
Yeah.
Mike, at what point are you going to hang this up? Because we have to mentally prepare ourselves for what these games are going to be like without you on them. So we just need to know for future, like just protection from possible emotion, that we just need to be prepared for when. Because look, as all of you will attest to, Mike Gorman is the voice of the Celtics for all three of us, and millions of more fans around the world. He is the best. I got to interview him for the first time when I was working at my old radio station. And I remember asking him at the end, I was like, hey, one of my favorite things that you've done is Requiem for the Big East. It's a 30 for 30 on ESPN. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people know that the Bill Raftery Send It In Jerome, where Jerome Smith breaks the backboard and it just shatters. Mike Gorman's sitting right next to him. And I kind of parlayed that moment into like, how much do you miss old school college basketball, because it's just not the same anymore. And he went on for like 10 minutes and I was like, I could listen to this for like an hour. He's a tremendous storyteller, and it's tough. We're all dealing with it, in our own ways. Chris, I know it must be unbelievably hard to even think of as a guy that's a colleague,
So I will just say this. So when I was and I hope the statute of limitation is worn off on this, but so when I was at ESPN, Mike Gorman used to pull me aside, and I had no idea if Mike Gorman even knew who I was or like what I did. And he's like, "You'll work for us someday." And I'm laughing, and he's like, "No, you're going to be part of us, and you'll be part of the broadcast." And I'm thinking, this man is just killing me with kindness. And so, but like a huge part of my decision to go over to NBC Sports Boston was based on, I can't believe I'm going to work with Mike and Tommy, who were just absolute, calling them legends doesn't do it justice. It's just, if you were a Celtic fan growing up, it was Mike and Tommy. And that's the only TV voices you ever knew. And the idea of that I would be part of that was so ridiculous to me. And even as I'm bracing to go over there, and I've probably told the story before, but I think my first night, I forget if it was a preseason game or whatever, because I jumped on first day of training camp, probably 2019, I think it was. And one of the first nights I'm in studio, and Tommy's sitting there, and Draper was setting us up, and me and Tommy are sitting on one side of the desk. I'm thinking he's looking over at me going, what is this? And he could not have been kinder. And Mike especially has just always sort of said this would happen. And so I'm in denial phase of it. I was going to do a podcast with Mike, and the first question was going to be, okay, you're here to announce that, this is all a farce, that you're not actually retiring. And, so look, if the Celtics will do him the justice of sending him out with a parade and making this a magical fairy tale ending, okay, maybe I'll be on board with it. That's a good time to ride off to the sunset. But yeah, I'm not mentally prepared quite yet for the idea, and I just don't want to think about it, and I didn't retweet the press release. I didn't I don't know, I'm just not there yet. And so we'll talk. I haven't talked to him a lot this summer, so we'll get there, and maybe I'll come to grips with it. But on one hand, I'm glad he gets a year to sort of celebrate and get the right send off. But again, it goes back to the Celtics. Let's get this right. Let's send him out with the championship, and then maybe I'll come to terms with it.
I know we got to tell the people, why we're here in the first place.
We're here in the first place because we're powered by FanDuel, and we're going to take a break to tell you today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel. Get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just $20, and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. It's $200 you can spend on betting on everything from the money line to over-unders to parlays to first home run of the game to this. Nobody's going to score in this inning. It's an amazing plethora of options for you at FanDuel, and it's all in that app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you get paid instantly, FanDuel makes it so easy to bet on NBA, MMA, tennis, golf, and of course, Major League Baseball. It's America's #1 sportsbook that is FanDuel. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball.
It really is just pretty nuts. You know, if you're of a certain age, obviously, and there's a pretty wide window of this that all three of us fall into, and I'm sure many of our listeners as well. There are just so many iconic broadcasters that have come through Boston. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We'll talk about the Jaylen Brown extension, some other things concerning the Celtics, but just thinking about it right now, and the fact that, you know, as you said, we've known for a couple of years that obviously we're nearing the end. Like, this wasn't going to go on forever, but, you know, he had told us on the show, I want to say it was about this time last year. You know, I think 2 more seasons feels like a good number. And so we did last year. And obviously this coming season will be the end. And it's obviously all three of us were too young to have experienced Johnny Most. People would have talked about Johnny Most.
I'm old enough. So I remember as a little child, like listening to that. And so like, there's part of me. So like, look, my Johnny Most stamped Mike Gorman, which I feel like that I just used some like really like my 14-year-old vernacular there, but like he helped Mike shape Got It and like his signature. And so, you know, but those are the 2 Celtic voices to me. And no, that's no disrespect to Grandy and Maxwell and everybody else. It's just those have been the voices throughout my life. And like eventually I'll include Grandy in that conversation because he's just been around now for forever. And that's a good thing. But yeah, it's wild that we just like we can name all the Celtic broadcasters in like 20 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just it speaks volumes about what they've meant to this. And that, again, that's why I'm just not ready to get there because it's Mike. Like,
well, where I was going with that anyway is just that, you know, to your point, like Mike has obviously been around for 4+ decades at this point. He has been my life as far as Celtics broadcasting goes on the TV side. It's been Grandy for really as long as I can remember on the radio side. And, you know, you could look at all these, all the different sports in town. Obviously, it was Gil Santos forever on the Patriots, and Bob Sopsey's great. But it was, you know, Gil, Hall of Famer, like league of his own. Obviously, you could look at the Red Sox, and so many came through there. But during like the sort of the height of my listening days, it was Sean McDonough. It was obviously Castiglione is still there, although he's going to be retiring. Jerry Trupiano, you know, like that was my childhood. Those 2 guys on the radio on EEI. You could. You know, the Bruins, like Dave Gosher, you know, for me, you know, obviously it's that era, you know, pretty much. And so like, I think about kind of what's next, and who knows, hopefully Grandy, you know, if nothing else, and I love the guy. So if he wants it, I hope he gets it. I root for what he roots for. But if, you know, if he decides he wants to stay on radio or continue in this kind of hybrid capacity, doesn't want to do TV. I saw a mention on Twitter the other day. I think it was Chad Finn saying that, you know, listing some of the people that had expressed interest in the job, and he named Noah Eagle. And I had this visceral reaction because, and Noah's great. And a Syracuse guy, obviously Ian is an icon. Like like this has nothing to do with Noah Eagle so much as like he's a kid. And that doesn't mean he's not good or not accomplished. It's like, I can't imagine going from Mike Gorman to someone who's in his 20s, all of a sudden doing Celtics games on TV. Like it will just, if it's not Grandy, basically whoever it is, if it's not Grandy, it's going to feel so incredibly different.
No, and I'm with you.
That's why I don't think it's unless Grandy doesn't want the job, I think would be the way that goes down. But I don't know.
All I can say is I'm still not. I just can't even imagine. Like it's above my pay grade for how that plays out. But I just can't imagine not Mike isn't part of the rotation. And you know, even it like this year he'll do the homes, and so hopefully Grandy will do the roads. And it's still just it's jarring that, you know, we're looking at life without Mike Gorman on the voice. And like, it's totally selfless of him to be like, you know, it's my time to just hand it off to somebody else. But I'm not ready for it. So I'm just gonna stay steadfast in that. And if you see me holding him down on that announcer table by game 82 and saying, no, you're not done. Like that's just the way I feel.
Here's something, Chris, that I am certain you are ready for. You are ready to move on from, and that is being asked. So, Chris, when do you think Jaylen Brown's going to get his extension done? When's this going to happen? What's the holdup? It's done. The Jaylen Brown extension's done. If you're listening to the show, obviously you know that by now. He has had his press conference. He had a one-on-one interview with Chris after the fact as well. So he has gotten obviously that much closer to Jaylen, who is now, yes, whether you like it or dislike it, the highest paid player in NBA history. And I have had a number of people reach out to me who maybe don't, I mean, they're NBA fans, they're basketball fans, but they don't necessarily follow it in the way that we do, where they're analyzing the the cap and percentage of cap, and just they just see the salary and go, oh my God, $305 million for Jaylen Brown. Like, really? Is he worth that? And my response is very simply always, it's just the cost of doing business. Like you didn't have a choice in the matter. You were going to supermax him. He was going to accept it. There were going to be some haggling over various things, whether it was the player option or trade kicker or whatever else. But this is what the deal was going to look like. He was never leaving unless he was traded, but he wasn't just going to refuse the deal. Nobody walks away from that money. And here we are. We move forward. So as much sort of drama or conversation has surrounded the last several weeks, Chris, of us debating how this was going to unfold, we knew how this was going to unfold. Jaylen Brown is still, and for the foreseeable future, maybe not the length of the contract, the way this league works, who knows, but for the foreseeable future, he is a Boston Celtic. Nothing has changed.
Right. But like, still, I'll admit, as much as, so I got worried because I kept digging in and saying, everything people tell me, it's all good. It's going to happen. Don't worry. But when you're on July 25th, you're like, why hasn't it happened? And so it's only natural to fret that stuff. Just like you said, it was hard to envision a pathway that didn't end with Jaylen getting that money. It was essentially close to $100 million more than what anybody else could offer. And some of that is like the Celtics could offer the extra year. Yeah. Right. So like, but still that sometimes matters because people love security and, Jaylen would have been risking something to try to go through this year. And whether that was to get all NBA again and be eligible or whatever the case may be. And so I think this was the expected outcome. But until he signed that paper in front of us all the other day, you were fair to sit there and wonder if for sure it would get to the finish line. I was pretty confident it would, and everyone from the team to the players seemed to think it would get there. And it's funny, it's almost anticlimactic, right? Like it was a cool moment. And I'm glad Jaylen got to do it sort of in the midst of the MIT program and the bridge program that he was doing. And that was really neat that, he was saying how he was working with the kids that day when his agent texts him and says, okay, the deal is in place. And like, how do you want to do this? And he wanted it back over there because he was already over there with the kids. And powerful moment and really cool to see. Like I'd been out there on the week before Friday when he went to Dorchester and did a court dedication. And like just seeing how people respond to Jaylen being in the community and like how much it means to them. It reminds you why, he's worth the money. And we can nitpick about 8 turnovers in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, but there's so much more to it than that. And so, just as you laid it out there, I'm not sure what the alternative was. If you're thinking like, oh, the Celtics should do something other than pay Jaylen Brown the max. So I'm glad it's done. I'm glad we can start obsessing about other parts of like the roster, which feels unfinished. I'm glad I can worry about like, when are they going to extend Derek White and like what's up in with Peyton Pritchard. And, it's fun to just turn the page on storylines that we've been talking about for months now and years now. And Jaylen's going to be here until the Celtics certainly have tougher decisions. And I don't know how that will tip. I think they want to see it this year and figure that all out. But like it's a little bit more of that security. Like everything right now, the focus should just be on the 23-24 season, and everybody has a little bit of security in terms of like all this. Everyone's like their future isn't uncertain right now. So, all right, the only focus should be on basketball. Let's see what they can do.
although this is me being entirely an asshat, I didn't need the applause after every single answer during the press conference.
It's like that's what we do at Supermax contracts, and it's weird as media because like there's
Yeah.
kids on both sides. There's Jalen's family. There's Celtic people, and so everyone's clapping after everything. And I'm like, what do I do with my hands? So
Yeah, 'cause
If
you don't
I
clap
just
in
had a
the
contract for $304 million and people want to applaud everything I say, I'm going to be totally fine with that. Okay? It's a big moment. All right.
it is.
huge moment.
Jeez.
Here's the way I look at it. I don't know how many Supermax signings I'll be a part of. So the
You
fact
got
that
at
I get
least
to
one
do,
more in you.
I got one more in me, and then we'll see. So it's kind of neat to be a part of those things, and everyone's a little bit different, and it's cool that they let him sort of dictate how it was going to play out, and I'm just glad to be a part of those things because they are monumental moments. Like people signing the highest value contract in NBA history. I don't know how many times I'm going to get to do that. Maybe twice.
How is
One more.
yeah. At least the one more with Jason Tatum when
Yeah.
he gets 350 or whatever the number is at that point.
With a player
You know,
option.
Something that hasn't probably been talked about a lot because we're in a sea of things that are talked about ad nauseum right now. You being someone who has been on the Celtics beat as long as you have been, obviously, and being very close to the team and close to the players, and you talked to Jaylen Brown dozens of times in your life, obviously. How has he changed since he's entered the league to where he is now, the highest paid player in league history? Just
That's
as a
interesting, like-
person, as a man, how has he evolved and grown?
It's funny because like I don't of all the people, like Jalen is sort of who he was. So you remember his first press conference, or he was sitting down there in New York. And he said, "I'm going to go to war for this city," even though they booed him when they took the pick. And it wasn't booing him; it was booing the situation and the fact that everybody wanted a more known commodity and all that. But Jalen has always sort of been who he is, and he has his priorities and things he wants to do beyond basketball. And I commend that because it's easy to just get focused on when you're a basketball player and getting paid a lot of money about basketball to be just overly concerned about that. Now I've heard people say like, oh, is he too worried about what he's going to do off the court? And it's like, come on, these guys have a lot of time. They have a lot of desires and ambitions and stuff like that. I think Jalen's going to be just fine. And I think he, more than anybody, is aware of his shortcomings as a basketball player. And so, you heard him say it afterward. I was asking him about, is there pressure? He's like, pressure isn't a bad thing. Pressure's good. Pressure makes you uncomfortable, makes you do things that, maybe you wouldn't naturally just gravitate towards. And so I think he knows. We're all sitting here lamenting the turnovers and the ball handling. And he's got Twitter. Like people are jerks on that platform, and they're pretty quick to tell him when things are going badly. And so I suspect he's always been someone that has been super motivated. And so I don't know. I would love to tell you a way that he's changed. I'm sure he's grown in ways that are beyond obvious. But for me, it comes down to he's a guy that every single year comes back better than he left, and I don't suspect that this year will be any different. So when I think about Jaylen Brown isn't going to get complacent because he got the biggest contract in NBA history. He wants to be remembered as one of the best, and he understands that there's still a ways to go to get there. And so credit to him, because I think it's easy when you get that big deal to sort of, whether you downshift or you just like, wow, look at me. And I just don't think Jalen's that guy. I think he's since day one, he's been motivated to show he's the best that he can be, or show that we haven't seen the best version of him. And that's something he kept saying at that press conference. So I'm eager to see max contract version of Jaylen Brown, and hopefully he'll shut a few people up on Twitter.
Good luck with that. That's going to be tough. But the one thing,
X, or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, I'm not calling it X. That's the stupidest thing ever. But the way this contract's been talked about, one of the things I've really enjoyed is, and Kaufman, we were talking about this pre-show, the blowback from the initial report, and then people with giant platforms or people that I think are somewhat intelligent to very intelligent in terms of talking about basketball are like, again, Russillo, the Basketball Jones guys. I don't know, was it No Dunks Incorporated, whatever they are now. A lot of people are saying like what else are they supposed to do? Like, this is called playing basketball in 2023, 2024. You have to lock these guys in. And the way Boston apparently wasn't supposed to sign a guy because he can't dribble his left hand, even though we have evidence that he can. And like, it's just ridiculous. And the other thing that I'll say is, Forsberg, you mentioned this in I think one of your most recent columns that you posted. One of my favorite things about this Jaylen Brown contract is for one whole year, Chris, we don't have to talk about Jaylen Brown getting traded somewhere. Like, this is just tremendous relief for all of us in the content. I can't talk about it anymore. I love Jaylen Brown. I love the fact that he's staying in Boston. I made the case last week that having him here, you're going to have to pay a little extra, but it's going to be okay because he's going to do some really great things in Boston. And you should want to have a player of that particular caliber off the floor in Boston. I think it's just tremendous. But at the buried of all that, at the heart of all of that is yes, we don't have to deal with Jaylen Brown trades anymore. I'm so thrilled for you.
It was number one on my list of questions to ask him in that one-on-one, and I fumbled that. But yeah, it's funny because like every time as it dragged on, I was like, oh, is he just not want to be part of trade rumors next July? But you could make a deal and then just execute it in August, so it really doesn't matter. But for one full year, for the rest of this offseason and straight through the trade deadline, Jaylen doesn't have to deal with that, and that's got to be a relief for him. Because every single year it's been something. It's Kawhi or James Harden or Jimmy or, I mean,
Anthony Davis,
Chris Dunn. Yeah, like, right. Like, although I feel like that was more Tatum, but like it just always been something. And so it's good that Jaylen just gets to sort of celebrate being the highest paid basketball player. And, and everyone knows like that's fleeting. Jason's going to come along next year and sign the next biggest, and so it is what it is. And I'm excited to see what Jaylen does as on and off the court. But the Celtics love security, and Jaylen has a whole bunch of it right now.
Is Derek White next?
I hope so. So it's funny. I always wonder how fast I should turn the page on these things, and it's something I've been thinking about for a while. He's been extension eligible. And so essentially he signed his in December of 2020. That was the pandemic year. So it's like essentially July of 2020. And, but second anniversary, you become eligible, and he's got 2 years left. There's no real reason the Celtics need to rush to do that, except that if Derek White continues his upward trajectory, and after you see Fred VanVleet's of the world sign for $128 million or whatever the crazy number is, there could be a value in just getting that done sooner than later. And so his max number, if I did my math right this morning as I'm sitting at my kitchen table punching numbers, is 140% of his last year's salary, which puts him at about, I think, $27 million. So with $2 million raises each year, that gets you to about $89 million or something like that, or maybe just south of that over 3 years, which is what you can offer this summer. And so, like, if I'm the Celtics, feel pretty good about the way Derek White has played here. And if you are all about security, I think I'd think about it. If I did my math right, I think it's 16.5% of the salary cap, and he's at 13.5 right now. It's not that big of a jump, and as you're looking for cost-efficient ways,
for 90.
So so if you call that, and again, sometimes I worry that real cap people are going to swoop in and be like, "No, you idiot, it's this." But like, I hope I did my math right, and like, I feel like that's a fair deal and something that he could at least think about. And the Celtics don't have to go that high. The CBA just changed where instead of 120%, you can go to 140%. So it's something they can talk about. You could always wait till next summer and talk about adding 3 years instead of 2 more years, or 3 or 4 more years instead of 3 years, whatever that gets you to 5 years total. So it's just something that if I'm Brad and I'm starting to plot long-term money, wouldn't be the worst to try to get him locked up. And it just comes down to how confident are you that he's your point guard for the future, and or at least a part of that backcourt, no matter who the PG and SG are. So I mean, I think if I'm Brad, it's something I'm floating. Maybe I take August off, so then maybe we can all enjoy a vacation and golf a little bit more. And yeah, let's rekindle that in September and see how everybody's feeling.
Yeah, we are on the cusp of. Well, go ahead, F.
No, I mean, I'm just saying I would 100% lock Derek White down as soon as humanly possible, because it's not like you have his replacement sitting somewhere on your roster that you're confident in.
Right.
I mean, I love Banton's going to be an interesting guy. Pritchard is, Peyton Pritchard. Who knows how long Malcolm Brogdon's going to be here? The guy that's going to replace him is not sitting on your roster right now.
Mhm.
So,
No.
unless they go out and trade for someone, which I don't think they're going to do right now. And I have a hard time replacing the guy that impacts winning like Derek White does. I mean, he's really tremendous. And, you go from
As long as we have a point guard on the Celtics that we can say impacts winning. Then,
Well, yeah. Well, he does
success.
though. I mean, look at his on-off numbers; they're unbelievable. But the thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
with Derek White going from a guy who everybody blamed being terrible in the NBA Finals, which was a ridiculous subplot, by the way, to being their starting point guard and like one of their best players. I mean, I would have argued last year, Forsberg. I don't know about you, but he was their third best player last year. I thought he was tremendous.
Yes, I argued it this offseason, and then funny, like 2 days later, they signed Porzingis or traded for Porzingis, and I was like, okay, well now he's the fourth best player. But and everybody
Hopefully.
was funny because everyone came at me and they're like, wait, wouldn't you say Rob is their third best player? And I was like, well, I would say Rob is their third best player. But like I get the conversation. He was really good last year, and I think we all knew, outside of getting traded last year or essentially a year and a half ago and getting thrown into that situation and all that comes with that he would be better and that he would be more comfortable and all that. But still, he went to it like if I was expecting a jump to this level, he went to an even higher level. And so I'm intrigued by. We've already seen the summer hype video of him dunking on some poor guy at a like a pro-am or something.
How do we feel about bald Derek White?
Yeah, bald D White is the man now.
I'm excited for
hair.
it.
I miss the hair.
Here's a funny story. He was doing a camp out at we talk about wearing hats on podcasts. He was doing a camp out in Colorado, and so his agent was nice enough to set something up where I could talk to him from the camp, and so we talk, and he's got a hat on, and so I don't think anything of it. And then like literally, I mean, 5 minutes after we're done the interview, people are sending me these pictures of him with all these campers, and he's got no hair. And I'm like, I missed the biggest question of the day. Like, oh my God.
You didn't even
Your
notice?
fault. You didn't know.
I mean, he was like that, when you're this, how am I supposed to know?
Yeah, but it's-
So
You did nothing on the
something
sides, though?
coming out of that,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just not observant. Okay. Are you guys just own
You
it.
weren't
Fine.
paying attention, Forsberg. Do your job. Christ's
He-
sake.
it's always shaved on the sides for Derek. So like, I just didn't notice. So that's on me, and I'll be more observant next time. But yeah, bald Derek White,
world.
Derek Flight, based on that dunk on the poor kid that was probably, I don't take too much. I keep joking about this because one, I hate summer workouts, and then I had to talk about Rob because when I saw Rob working on stuff that was really intriguing to me. But just in general, like summer workout tapes or summer pro-ams, please. Peyton Pritchard scored 92 points in a pro-am 2 years ago, and it was the dumbest thing ever.
Pretty sure he
and-
was the same guy when he
He
came
locked
back.
up by Davion Mitchell the next actual game.
And so he's going to the U.S. Select Camp this year, and I think that's really good for Peyton. And so, look, I don't know if it's going to change anything. It's 4 days, but he has to guard Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton and like all these real dudes. That's so much more valuable than playing your buddies in Oregon and stuff. So like let's see what happens there. But I do think I'm excited because I think Peyton could be pretty important at the start of the year. So not to belittle pro-am numbers and pro-am dunks and all that. But yeah, like summer's weird. We're all about hype.
I do think, and I'm curious how it plays out, but I made the comment on other shows. I've talked about it a little bit here as well, that I just think based upon what the roster is right now, barring changes, obviously we're sitting in late July, changes can still happen, but where we are currently, I think Peyton Pritchard serves an incredibly important role for this team. I think he's going to be playing 20-25 minutes per game on average. I think we are going to see everything that Peyton Pritchard wanted to happen elsewhere when he kept, looking for a trade. I think he is now with Marcus gone, and just by virtue of that, one less impactful guard. We'll see what Banton is, obviously, but I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for Peyton Pritchard. Do you see him getting that kind of a workload?
The only thing I would say is it comes down to Brogdon's health. So if Brogdon is, and again, Brad
He's
told
not
me
playing 30 a game.
no, but so I do remember that. I think Point Tatum, Point Brown, Point Porzingis, like there's a lot of minutes that they can eat up in terms of handling the basketball or being
Sure.
part of that. So I do think I don't necessarily see an immediate pathway for Peyton. And yet, if you look at they used 3 guards last year, if they're going to use 3 guards this year, there's going to be an opportunity for him. And so it comes down to just, again, if Brogdon is not healthy at the start of the year, I think it is a giant role out the gates. Like we're talking 25, 30 minutes a night where they need a backup point guard. And even if Brogdon is just limited, you're absolutely right. I see a huge potential for Brogdon to be, I mean, for Pritchard to be part of this rotation. I wonder where it'll be if once Brogdon's healthy and you got Brogdon and White eating most of those minutes. But again, some of that hinges on Brogdon's future. And so it's all interconnected, and it like, we'll see if they add any more players before that. It's the roster feels unfinished to me. Like it feels like there's no movement around the league because Lillard and Harden are still just sort of at this impasse, and there's no
Listen,
free
Dame's only
agents
going to one team. Just ask him.
right. I mean, so once they find those teams for not, for making it seem like they're going to one spot, I'll be interested if anything loosens and just, teams more towards September start looking at their roster and going, oh, okay, we don't need 7 point guards. So I'll be interested to see how the Celtics finish this off. They have 3 non-guaranteed deals: Cornette, Champagnie, and Banton. And so, there's an opportunity here if they want to maneuver with another open roster spot and a 2-way spot. You can sort of shuffle the deck a little bit. Nothing that I think will impact the top part of the roster, and yet, you get into camp and you're like, okay, maybe we're a little bit thin at the point guard spot, or we're a little bit thin at the wing, or, we need this or we need that. And I think that will help dictate how they finish this thing off. Cause again, they could go into the year with this. I just don't get the sense that they're going to sign a 15th guy and be like, yeah, we're good here. I think maybe they do. Maybe they just decide to wait till the trade deadline to approach things. But
Do you think a Brogdon trade is dead?
I would say, and this is just my feeling on it, and I've repeated this often. I feel like they were going to trade Brogdon as part of the Smart deal, and then they were going to, as part of the Porzingis deal, and then they were going to trade Marcus Smart. And I wonder if that would have meant Tyus Jones coming to Boston. No one has told me if that was actually the plan or whatnot, but when you look at how it was all structured and the deal falling apart, and then how quickly they were able to audible, I just wonder if they would have been okay with a lower salary backup point guard who could fill that role, who had a high assist to turnover, who probably fit a little bit better in terms of what they wanted. That would have opened an avenue to maybe, explore other options, whether that was keeping Grant or doing something else with the money. I just wonder if that would have been a possibility. So I can't ever say that I think the Brogdon thing is completely done. I know they've got to repair that relationship a little bit. And I think, Brogdon making $22.5 million is a pretty easy way to be like, just come play and, figure it out. I think both sides are professional enough to figure that out. But I just wonder what his value is in a league that's maybe a little bit leery about where he's at health wise. And, maybe he needs to show it a little bit before teams are ready to be willing to move it. And so, look, I keep saying it, in a perfect world, in an ideal world, without this new CBA, you would have just carried Malcolm Brogdon off of after signing him last summer, and he was what you needed, and you just keep him forever. But the Celtics are looking at a real crunch in terms of money, and so something has to give sooner than later. And unfortunately for Brogdon, $22.5 million is just untenable for a backup point guard, and so something has to give sooner than later. And I don't know if maybe that'll be in season when they can pile some draft picks with his salary and figure something out, or maybe it's next summer. But unfortunately, it's just the reality of the new CBA. So I think you have to keep that avenue open, and it's just you got to figure out what makes the most sense.
We have to get out of here in a few, but we couldn't do it without hitting on this. Ev, you were texting me earlier.
I was waiting for this. Yeah.
Really sour. Really just.
I don't think I've been more upset about a Celtics related headline in a long time, guys.
Downright butthurt about what could have been.
I'm so upset. I can't even contain myself. Like
back in 1997, as I recall. Talk to me a little bit here, Ev, because I
don't even know where this is going.
Yeah. I mean, you've been out on the links all day. You may have missed this.
I totally missed this.
And I'm not sure that I feel the same way that Evan actually does. So I want him to start.
Well, here's the thing. Once KG got traded to Boston, my favorite non-Celtic player in the league at that time transferred from Kevin Garnett to Tracy McGrady. And it has been revealed through Ryan Russillo's podcast that the Celtics could have drafted Tracy McGrady in the year that he came out. Problem was their head coach at the time was Rick Pitino, and Tracy McGrady did not want to play for Rick Pitino because Rick Pitino was a hard ass at Kentucky and just heard a lot of bad stories. Didn't want to play, so he tanked the interview on purpose. His words are a little bit different than this, but they say the same thing. Just to be totally honest here, tanked the interview so the Celtics wouldn't take him, and this hurts because I love T-Mac. Like I just love that guy so much. I love his game. He was my favorite non-Celtic, and he's.
So what was that? The Billups year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Billups Ron Mercer year.
They passed over him twice. Took. Billups, like you said, I think T-Mac said something along the lines of because he was asked, Russillo asked him,
right.
did you tank the workout? And he said, I wouldn't say that, but I wasn't like fully me or whatever.
Yeah, I don't. So the only thing I would say to that is, I mean, they were going to draft who they were going to draft. I don't know if and so like that part matters, and I think we put more of an emphasis on it now when everything is magnified.
When you see a guy enter the Hall of Fame,
well, that helps, right? It's easy to say in hindsight about what you would have done, and we'd have to hop in the time machine and see what it is. But yeah, like it's a little bit of a stomach punch just because of how that draft played out and all that. But although if they had drafted T-Mac, would Pitino have survived?
I don't know. I hope. I have no idea how this ends. Right? You can't. It's a tough game.
How would the world have changed if T-Mac was here? Like it's a dangerous wormhole to go down and all that. Certainly,
I'm just not even upset the way that Evan is. Like he said it, and I was like, oh, and so I Google around. I didn't even listen to the podcast, but I read a little bit of a transcript within. I think B-Rob had an article, and honestly, to me, it's the other way. Like T-Mac is the one who just comes off as soft.
Yeah.
He's like I don't want to go play for a coach that coaches his guys that hard.
That ain't happening.
I am likewise a gigantic T-Mac fan, and part of it was my final few years at ESPN. He was there and doing some of the jump with us, and he was a really nice human being, and all that he's done down there in Houston and all that. I think they had some flooding back in the day, and he was really involved in, help people out. And he's like a good person. And so,
Jaylen Brown a lot helps. They train together.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it ironic? Him and Jaylen Brown worked out pretty often, and T-Mac had him down at his house. And yeah, it's, I don't want to go down. I don't like the what if route. It just makes me mad. So, I'm with you. I mean, it's fascinating to think about. But maybe they draft T-Mac and then trade him because they're so impatient, and it's like then that's even hurts me even more, right? Because it's one thing for Chauncey and all that, but like if they had legitimately had a Hall of Famer and just were so impatient that they dealt him, maybe that would have hurt even more. So
yeah, I'm not upset about the Chauncey thing either, because I mean, absolutely, you don't trade a guy taking that high halfway through his rookie year. Like I don't forgive Pitino for that. But what I will say when people are like, see what he look at Chauncey, he won a championship, he became the like, yeah, I mean, it took Chauncey like 8 stops before he became the Chauncey Billups that everybody talks about now. So it's not like that happened immediately after he left Boston. Like those are, 2 diverging roads right there.
Fair.
But I mean, we could eviscerate the Patino era for any number of reasons that go beyond Chauncey Billups or Tracy McGrady.
I think John Tomasi brought it up on a podcast during the pandemic, but he has some Patino pasta that the team handed out after he was installed and got all the power in the world to take that position. And I think he just moved. So I hope he threw it in the garbage as he was, because that was a tough era to live through as someone who was around for it and lost a lot of their fandom during that time period. So thank goodness Danny Ainge came and saved us all.
Is your fandom back? Like, we'll end after this, but are not, are you allowed to be? I recognize you cover the team and there's an impartiality of that. I just mean at your core, as a local, are you still a Celtics fan, not just rooting for success because it's good for business? Do you root for the team because you root for the team?
I love this topic. So Ian Thompson reached out and he's doing some stuff for Northeastern now. We were talking about this summer, and I put it this way: like, there's a part of me that's this very old school, like, you're not part of the story. You're not rooting for anybody. Now, every journalist is lying if they don't tell you they're not rooting for a storyline, because it makes our lives easier and stuff like that. But one of the and I would say, and I don't know what the right adjective is here, but I think one of the coolest parts of what I do now is that I've been able to sort of let that side down a little bit, right? And so some of it's, I don't want to say it's in jest, because like I really like Rob Williams, and like that's not a bit. It's a bit in the sense that I bring it up all the time because it's funny and people think, look at this idiot saying that they shouldn't trade like Jokic for Rob Williams. But like, in terms of, it's weird for me now because I have young kids and they're starting to sort of at least have an interest in basketball, and they want the Celtics to do well. And it's always this sort of balance between, like, how do I teach them we live here and their friends like the team? And so it's all part of it. I would be lying if I said I don't have, even beyond the selfishness of wanting them to do well for business, that like you develop relationships with people, and like I want to see these people do well. I want Brad Stevens to have success. I want Joe Mazzulla to be successful, and like that's just part of it. And then the fandom part of it's weird. Like I don't lament losses. Maybe like the playoff sting, because you want it to go forever and you want them to win titles and to for seasons to be magical. But like, I would say I get worked up because it's part of my job to tie into that fandom. And it's like, it does drive me nuts when they don't play to a certain level or they don't play to a standard. And I get that from a fan perspective, but it is a weird balance. Like, I never know what the right way to do that is. And it's funny, like the old guard looks at me and says, if you have on a pair of green sneakers, like, look at this idiot, supporting the team. And, I don't know what the right balance is with that. And, but all I know is that some of the people I really like in media are not afraid to be fans. Like, I don't think Bob Ryan has ever been afraid to be like a fan. I love Bill Simmons, and like, more than anybody, he's been able to toe that line and not be an unabashed fan. And, people might be like, oh God, here comes another Boston segment. Maybe I just justify it because I want to listen to that stuff. But I don't know. Like, what do you guys come down? Do you guys roll your eyes if I have a hot take about the team and tie it into how I grew up here or whatever? Like, what should I be doing?
Not if it's a valid take, like a reasoned take. If I just think there's a difference between straight up homerism that is just blatant homerism,
Right.
which we can all kind of, like, I'll do it on Twitter all the time, kind of in jest, and like I'll go after our friend Greeny here. Like, if you're tweeting the way Greeny tweets, where, and I mean, even to some degree, he's obviously a fan, but even to some degree, some of that's a bit, where it's like just
Sure.
over the top. If you're doing that in your role, it's not going to be obviously received, the way you would want it to, versus something that, I think what you kind of get away with, and this, is some of the Rob stuff or things along those lines. Not only can you do them, they're encouraged because of where you work, being that you are the television,
Sure.
affiliate of the team. Like I wonder, like as you were talking, you may not even know the answer to this because you haven't been there for it, but 2 years ago, this team actually gets done against Golden State, wins a championship. Do you by affiliation get a ring?
Oh, I have no idea. I would say no. There's no chance. But
I mean, I bet plenty of people in your building do.
I wonder. And again, like, I mean, it's so weird to even think about for me because I don't consider myself a part of like what they're doing.
Sure.
It's fascinating to be along for the ride and be part of it. And I hope I, by proxy, am encouraging people to put their eyes on this and be part of the conversation and make them feel a certain way about that. But yeah, I don't know. Like that would be weird to me. I did not do as much as 900 other people that really matter in that regards. And so the way I would put it is just I always want them to. The one thing we talk a lot about in our office is being authentic, and it's funny because they did this like authentic fan Friday thing or whatever. And I was like, well, when I first got there, I was like, what the hell does this mean? Like, what are we talking about? Authentic fans or whatever, authentic, or just being authentic. But like, I swear to God, like the one thing I've learned through my time there has been, you have to be yourself, right? Like you can try to go out there and act and be something. But if you're not at your core talking about like what you really believe in or what you like, how you feel. So that's why, like, I don't, people come at me a lot about, oh, you're losing your mind after a loss. You're so dumb. It's just a regular season game in Utah. And I'm like, yeah, but like my phone's blowing up with all my friends who are basketball junkies and they're pissed too. And like, we're mad that Joe didn't play Derek White for the last 12 minutes. So we're going to yell about that. And if you don't like that, like, okay, but that's who I am. And, I hope that comes through to the people involved. I hope that comes through to the viewers, and like that's all you can do. If I try, like it's going to be so obvious when I'm doing something stupid or trying to say something that I don't believe in. Like I just can't do it. So yeah, I'll try to be authentic, and if that comes off in terms of like being overly supportive because I want the team to do well, then maybe that happens. And so it's fascinating. Like Gorman, chief among them, like. We know he's a huge Celtic fan, right? Like to bring this conversation full circle.
I mean, if you're not a broadcaster for a team and a fan, like a home broadcaster,
right?
Like what are you doing? Like you have to be. I mean, if for no other reason, even if you are not sincerely a fan because you're whatever from, Indiana and you don't root for the Celtics, like fine, that's okay, but you have to at least sell the bit for your listeners because they want you to be a fan.
But think about it. Like remember how we thought of Tommy, like the ultimate Celtic homer. And like, for me, Gorman doesn't come across as someone who just slaps you in the face and says, I'm a Celtic fan.
Right.
We all know, and being part of the ride, we know like what his allegiance is. But I think that to me, that I marvel at that. He's able to do his job and not get soaked into every call, like, and be mad that it goes against you, and just be professional about it and all that. So all the more reason that he can never retire. And I'll make sure that we next year when we're celebrating the final year of Mike Gorman, unless they win the title, and then I'll justify it. But the only something's on you. I'm just making sure.
No, not really. The only thing I think people understand about working in media and where Chris is at is like when you meet people and talk with them and develop relationships with them, you root for them. And he mentioned that earlier. That's when you cover, like Kaufman, you remember covering, Syracuse basketball, football, lacrosse when you were at school. Like those are also your classmates. Like you root for them. It's like it's hard. It's like it's not easy. When I used to do play-by-play for minor league baseball, you develop relationships with these guys, and like it killed me that Kike Hernandez got traded this week because that's my guy. Like I've known Kike since he was 17 years old, and part of me is sad that he's gone, but part of me hopes he wins a ring with the Dodgers so he can just go have one more, crack at a World Series. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite people of all time. So that's a hard balance. I don't think people understand how hard that is, because you genuinely just, for the most part, guys are nice. The guys that play these games are relatively nice. I don't know if people want them to be jerks or whatever, but most of the time they're awesome. So it's hard.
And when they're not jerks, you root for them to lose. So, and I'm not saying there's definitely people out there that have been like that in recent seasons, 2019, but you just, it's all part of it. And I will say that, even someone, so I was thinking about this today. So to really bring this full circle, like I remember bringing my daughter to a Celtics practice one day, and Jeff Green could be moody and was like, especially coming off the hard stuff, like that was a lot of hard stuff to go through. But he took the time to come over, and no one else, like, short of Brad Stevens or whatever, would come over. And my daughter was just sitting on a little exercise pad or whatever, like she was so little and playing with a basketball, but Jeff Green came over and like interacted with her. And to me, I was like, oh my God. So in that moment, I was like, Jeff Green is a human who understands, like, I'm just not somebody who shows up and does this every day. And so I like kind of rooted for him, and to watch him win a championship this year with Denver, like, it was validating, and I feel good for him. And I like, it's okay to be like, to be happy for someone. Like, I just can't remove that part of me,
right? Just
because I'm freaking media, like right. I have a human side. So, it just, as Evan laid out, like, it just, whether it's relationships or just, you see a side of someone that you're like, oh, I really like this person. I want them to do well. And, I watch a lot of the work that people put in, and a lot of that is more so the end of the roster guys or the coaches, or like, people don't understand, like, being an assistant coach sucks. Like, you work 1,000 hours and you advanced scout, and you stay there after practice for hours and sacrifice time with your family so that some dude can shoot on his time. And like, it's just such a grind. And I would never, like, why Evan Turner got the hell out of coaching after like a year? Because he's like, I made way too much money to be doing this. And so credit to all those guys who go out there and give up their time with their families. I respect the hell out of that. And I respect the hell out of, like, just how hard it is. And so shouts to those guys. And look, some people are making better money than others, but like, it's a grind. And I would not want to do it. And front office and analytics, and these people work. And I'm really impressed by the time and effort they put in there. And, look, they're all working, because those people deserve to get the ring and celebrate if this thing gets to where it should. And hopefully this year they figure out a way to get that.
I'll be honest, and I know we got to go, but and you're not, like, I called you a beat writer, and to some degree you're a beat writer, but obviously with your role in television, it's, you're in this hybrid thing, but to the true beat writer, kind of everything you just said about assistant coaches is how I've always felt about beat writers. For people that are outside of the industry that don't understand the grind, and I mean, never mind the wide range of salary, like, most are not paid very well, but the grind of just, like, people think it's glamorous, like, being on the beat and going every game and being around all these players and getting to ask questions all the time and going to the locker room and all this stuff. And, I've certainly done facets of it in my career. I've never been a full-time beat writer, and I've never wanted to. And you did it for years and years and years. You literally live on other people's schedules.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't imagine living that way. And I have nothing but respect for the people who do it, because I don't envy it, and someone has to do it.
And more so for baseball. Like, when I see those people grinding 162 games and doing what they do, like, shout out. And people that do it for years and years and years. And like you said, I'm benefiting from the ability to diversify and do multiple different things. But people that got to be on the ground every day, and I'm there a lot, but not as much as everybody else. And it's impressive. So yeah, I guess long-winded way of saying, like, shout out to everybody. Like, it takes a lot to do all this.
Especially Mike Gorman.
Right.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, again, same deal. Like, that's a lot of games.
Yeah.
So God bless you, Mike Gorman.
All right. Well, we did it. Fun show. We got deep into a lot of different stuff. That's what happens when three dudes get together and don't have plans on a Friday night. So you go down some wild Celtics and media rabbit holes. Fun stuff. Make sure you check out future shows, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, Celtics Beat, wherever you get your podcasts. Obviously, the video, YouTube clips will be out there for you. And, of course, the audio that hopefully you're listening to right now. We'll talk to you again next time. Chris, thanks so much.